morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. First, I want to thank you all for your time and attention, and I apologize that there's more time and attention than I'm going to take of you today, but there's a lot of things to talk about. And at the beginning of this case, I told you that we're going to prove some aggravators beyond a reasonable doubt. At this point, we've done that. And we're going to show that the aggravators outweigh the mitigators and that this defendant should be sentenced to the ultimate penalty of death. Now, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to talk about some of the facts. I'm going to use the visual aids to show you some of the exhibits, talk about those facts. Then I'm going to talk about the aggravators themselves, how the facts apply to the aggravators. Then I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that the defense presented and some of the mitigators that you're going to be instructed on, and then we're going to close this thing out. So first, last couple of days we've been talking a lot about Jamie, a lot about the defendant, but let's go back. I want to review with you kind of the way this thing plays out in a little bit more detail than I have before. Using all of that fun evidence that we put in, there is a reason for it. So the slides aren't beautiful, but they have the pictures. Well, all these pictures are in evidence, so you can refer to them. And I tried to put exhibit numbers wherever I could. So if you need to refer to them, that's why all that's there. So first, you have State's Exhibit 184. This is just a simple bill that shows the time period the defendant and Jamie were living at Norwood Avenue. And it's a little hard to read up there, but the 10930 Norwood Avenue, bill went to Jamie Ivanchik. I believe the date of the bill is December 19th, and for the period from December to early January. So there was evidence where they were, where Jamie had last been. There was indication of that. We know that was the case. So what happens then? Defendant and Jamie are living at that residence, and he kills her. And now you know that's an aggravator. And the defense agrees that it's an aggravator. There's a stipulation. He is convicted of that. He was convicted before we are here today, back on December 13th of 2023. That is one aggravator. That satisfies the first aggravator. So we get to look at those facts. What happened there? The defendant gets into an incident with Jamie, and he describes it, that there's violence between them or that she's threatening the kids, but even if we take him at his word, and by now you should be realizing that there's a lot of problems with doing that in many circumstances, but even if we take him at his word, he disarms her, she's no longer a threat, and he starts to strangle her, and he makes the decision that he is going to end her life. Those are not good facts for him. So she is getting choked out for the last time, because as we'll talk about, there's lots of indications that happened on a regular basis. For the last time, knowing that it was the last time, and then just to really do her in, while she's on the floor, he doesn't want her to come back, he goes, gets a hammer, and bashes her in the head. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the future too. But then, and this is one of those fun facts that he adds that doesn't really fit in right. He says, while all that's going on, and I'm going to refer, there are two separate interviews he does. I'm just going to refer to the times because they have timestamps on them. One happened somewhere between like 1 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. The other one happened same day, closer to between like 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., somewhere in there. So I'm just going to refer to the times that it happened. And it was on January 4th of 2019. But the defendant says, second interview, 11:18 in the morning, about 18 seconds, he says, there's broken glass just around. Did y'all catch that? It's just broken glass around. That's part of the argument that he left out. Why did he leave that out? Why is there broken glass on the ground? Because he says that he's strangling her, and she grabs broken glass to try and stab him to live, and fails. Why is there broken glass on the ground? Because it was another one of these domestic violence situations that is not the way the defendant wants you to believe. He's the violent one. He's the violent one. And does she always react appropriately? Not necessarily. Does Jamie have problems? Absolutely. But you don't have broken glass just lying around, especially broken glass of a size that you're going to be able to grab and stab somebody with. So that's one of those fun facts. Also, after he kills Jamie, this was another fun fact that's very telling about the defendant that we'll talk about as we keep going. The defendant he's killed Jamie. He has buried her. He wants to leave town and hide from the fact that he's done that. And what does he do? He calls Laura and Richard up to get money from them so he can do it. Like the gall and audacity of that. And sure enough, they, being the very helpful people that they are, had, and the records indicate, have always been supportive and trying to help Jamie, help the defendant. They do it. They give him $1,000, which he uses to flee so that he can later come back and kill them all. But that's where our facts kind of start here. From there, you have States 206. So this is another document, which, by the way, these are all documents that were just floating around in the defendant's trunk. So the guy who is keeping an immaculate prison cell, you can see the car, the Kia he was driving. There was nothing immaculate about that. You can see all the McDonald's trash. Like, that was clearly post Laura. And even the Hyundai, I know that he was stuffing it with stuff, but you could tell all this stuff in there existed in there for a period of time. So don't let him fool you about how cleanly he is. The thing about prison or jail is that there's not a lot of stuff to have to be messy with. But anyway, this item just shows us, it helps us build our timeline. Because we know November 26th of 2018, he was in Texas, Houston, Texas specifically, selling an item. And the rest of it's not important, but we know it's him. We know he's in Texas. And then we have the next thing that comes up in our timeline, and keep in mind that the timestamps on these are in UTC, so I'm going to convert them for you. So December 1st, 2018, at 7:27 p.m., the defendant tells Damian Cunningham, "Hey homie, I'm moving back up to Ohio in mid-December. You already know we're going to link up." So what does this tell us? There is already a plan afoot. He is going to end up back in Ohio. Texas is already over for him. But it's the 1st. He's going to be in Ohio not soon, not next week, not in a couple days, in mid-December. Why? Because he knows where he's got to go in between. So,
can we approach?
You may.
All right, Mr. Sarabia, you may continue.
Thank you, Judge, and I apologize. I'm going to have to remember where it was. Yes, that's right. We were talking about the defendant still being in Texas, being able to tell that he had a plan. So next thing in our timeline would be December 2nd, 2018, 10:37 a.m. The defendant tells his mother, I should be in Ohio around next Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. Wow, so you're moving back or are you coming to visit? Moving. So there is already a plan afoot. Notice he says to his mother next Monday or Tuesday. To the other guy, to Damian Cunningham, he says mid-December. What's your plan when you get here? My plan is what it was in North Carolina before I moved to Texas. He's got this plan that is not at all the plan. And again, by now you should know the defendant lies a lot. Even his parents were, that was a problem. Still apparently is a problem at this point. So good conversation. There we go. He's going back to Ohio. So December 2nd, later that same day, so this is about 2 hours later, at 12:34 p.m., there's a receipt from a Walmart in, I think it's Spring, Texas. And really the only important thing there is it's in Texas. The defendant is still in Texas on the 2nd. We know that he is still there. So, also this period of time, we see, this is the 6th actually, at 10:23 p.m., the defendant is planning to come home. Home is Ohio. Summer Colt lives in Ohio. He's saying next week. Now, keep in mind, it's the 6th. Next week would be the week that he's killing everybody. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, he is already in Tarpon Springs with the Ivansics at this point. Because we see, well, this would actually be the next day, but it's the 7th. At 2:02 p.m., the defendant is sending pictures of his kids from the crime scene. This is the living room. That, I submit to you, is Rich Ivanchik right there on the far right of that photograph, sitting in the armchair. And I want to say there's actually 3 of these photographs. I only put up one. They're all sent about the same time. But we can see exactly where this is. So that's the couch. You can see the floor. Obviously the rugs and things are gone and he's trashed the place in the interim. But you can see the outlet there on the back. You can see the corner there that would lead to the hallway. So we know where they are. We know when they are there. We know that he is there in 1954 Juanita Way by the afternoon of the 7th and probably the day before. So why is that interesting? That means that he was planning to kill these people since at least that point. And it looks like it was way back, at least on the 1st. But we know, so then he is there for a week with the intention of killing all 3 of these people, which will go to one of our aggravators. So then we move on. We see on the 11th, at 3:54 p.m., the defendant sending a Facebook message to his buddy that he is buying his new car. Or wait, I'm not on the wrong one. That's right, we'll get there. He's asking, is he in Ohio? No, I got snowed in. Hold on, wait a second. When was the last time it snowed in Tarpon Springs? It hasn't. He's lying. Why is he lying? He doesn't want people to know where he is, because he knows what he's going to be doing there. I got snowed in is a lie. That sucks. Goes on to say, you alive? Yeah, again, so this is the 11th. 11th at 3:54. Yeah, I'm just in waiting. My friend's buying me a new car for Christmas come Friday. Friday is the 14th. His friend is buying him a new car. He is already seeding the plan of, I'm going to have a new car. Whose car is he going to have? He's got designs on Laura's 2013 Kia already. This is planning. This is intent. This is what he was there to do. While he's hanging out with them, smiling, eating their food, sleeping in their bed, enjoying their hospitality, he's telling his friend about how he's going to be buying a new car on Friday. So then he goes on to say, and then the next message is actually at 10:53 a.m. on the 12th. I haven't been in much contact. I've been busy in North Carolina. He's not in North Carolina. We know he's in Florida. I'm still waiting out a blizzard in West Virginia. So I can't even tell if he's claiming to be in West Virginia or North Carolina here. But and his daughter has the flu, and now there's more about the car. But like I said, I'm getting a new whip car come Friday. He gets a discount because he's a federal agent. You can see it's a continuation of my friend's buying me a car. Noah Mather had said, "Oh man, that's an awesome friend," because that's kind of unbelievable. But anyway, you can see the intent. He's going to have that car. That's where his head's at. So then we get to, this one's a little smaller. He's talking to his mother. This is 3:01 p.m., or starts at 3:01 p.m. on the 12th. They're chatting. He says, where is it? Had to, 3:01 p.m. Had to wait out a blizzard over the weekend. Well, once again, he's in Florida on the 12th. There's no blizzard in Florida. Bella caught the flu, so I've been taking care of her nonstop. And Friday, 14th, my cousin that's in the Navy is buying me a new vehicle for Christmas, one that can withstand snow. He is telling these people that he's going to get a new car. So his mother, what state are you in if you had to wait out a blizzard? And she's not stupid. No, there was a blizzard that was going to be in my route. I'm still in Texas. He's not telling his mother that he went to visit the Ivansics. He's not telling his mother that he's in Florida, in Tarpon Springs. Why is that? Why is he telling her that he's still in Texas when we all know that he's in Florida? Because he knows what he's in Florida to do. He knows that after spending all this time with the Ivansics, he's going to bash them in the head with a hammer. So, and then they finish up the conversation. So just to reiterate, we see on the 14th at 10:12 a.m., he's having a conversation with Summer Colt. He sends this photograph, which is in our crime scene. You can see the same blanket. She is on that bed there. Obviously, the comforter is down. Sends her another photograph about the same time of the two kids in the crime scene. Not in Texas, not in a blizzard. You see the one from the crime scene. Obviously the exact same place, except by the time law enforcement gets there, he's knocked over a decorative Christmas tree and moved that chair. And here's another one. And this one, you can see, it's kind of hard to see in this, but it's that corner of the bed, because you can see the wood planking just a little bit, and you can see that the bottom of that piece of furniture. So it's the far, bottom of the bed corner that he's taking of his son, again with that same blanket, in the room in the crime scene. So on the 14th, 10:32 a.m., 14th is probably the day that he kills the first two. He says, they're chatting. LOL, I'm sorry. I was up all night finishing the packing. I need a nap. Finishing the packing. Why? Why is he saying that? Because he's intending to finish what he came there to do and leave. All of this is showing where his head is at. He's putting off these people, telling them a story so that they don't suspect when he does show up in Ohio, having killed 3 people, where he's been and what he's been doing. All right, so these are all CVS receipts. They're all within about half an hour of each other. I think the one on the far left was found in the house in one of those garbage bags. The two other ones were found in the Hyundai, probably came out of Laura's purse. But they show timestamps between 12:33 p.m. and 12:53 p.m. on the 14th in Brooksville because she's shopping. And you heard Detective Anderson tell you that some video surveillance was recovered of Laura at that location. And we can trace her visit. This again, I believe this came out of the Hyundai as well. One of the things that the defendant bagged up when he bagged up Laura's purse unceremoniously. You can see that she was at Chase Bank at 1:03 p.m., which on Mariner Boulevard, which again, Hernando County, not far from the CVS. We heard from Detective Anderson. I don't have a receipt to show you, but at 1:16 p.m. she was at Murphy's Market on Mariner Boulevard. She was at Cracker Barrel at 2:27 p.m. in Spring Hill. So you see, it's a shopping trip. And then the last place we know she's alive, Walgreens in Port Richey, which would be on the way back at 3:45 p.m. And again, Detective Anderson, and the one is just a magnification of the other. Detective Anderson told you that there was video surveillance recovered that he observed, and it was Laura with her purse and her 2013 Kia. So what is the defendant doing then? And I submit to you, the defendant has probably been waiting for the opportunity when he's got these people alone, and he knows that he's going to be able to get them one at a time. So sliding glass door would be there on the top. The couch that has been pulled across the opening is there on the left of this photograph. But he is bashing Richard Ivancic in the head. Right about there. Probably a carpet either on top of there or in close proximity. And we have some blood spots, some blood spatter. It would go to Richard Ivancic. You can see, you can't really see it in the faraway shot, but you can see from the faraway shot where it is on the wall. And then that close-up on the wall. Going back to this one real quick, we know that wasn't there. It wasn't that the couch wasn't there because you can't get blood splatter behind the couch if the couch is there blocking it. So Richard Ivancic, he bashes in the head, and we'll talk about that in a little bit greater detail later. But we also have some blood spatter over here. It's interesting to me that this cabinet has empty shelves in it. It's clearly Laura was a collector of these figurines, and we found a whole bunch of these figurines that were broken, as if somebody had disturbed the furniture, perhaps in the fight that probably didn't go down the way the defendant wished it did. But the defendant just bagged these things up and put them in the Hyundai.
Can we approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Thank you, Judge. So Laura gets home. Laura gets home and she goes around that corner, is right in that doorway into the kitchen. And we see blood spatter here, which is consistent with that. And the defendant, so note, the defendant says he kills Richard at 1, he kills Laura at 2. Well, if it happened on the 15th, if we're missing a shopping trip, maybe. But I submit to you the evidence doesn't support that. The evidence supports that this was the 14th. And the defendant wasn't great on dates anyway. We know that different times in the confession he says, I left on the 22nd, and other times he says left on the 23rd. I don't know that he was exactly keeping up with the calendar days. But what we do know is once he killed Richard, we know that Laura was on that shopping trip for hours. It takes some time to get up to Hernando. She was clearly shopping in Hernando. It takes some time to get back. He is sitting there lying in wait to kill Laura. Like the plan is activated. If there was any hesitance on his part, once he swung the hammer the first time at Richard, it was gone. So now he is just sitting there waiting. Sitting there lying in wait for Laura, unsuspecting, to come home so that he can bash her in the head and kill her. And that's what he does. That's that portion of the wall right there. Some more blood spatter. Laura's purse. And if you're not looking at it close, it can almost look like a shadow, but right there on the bottom on the handle, you can see blood. And we get the purse from the Hyundai. Why? Because the defendant spent a decent amount of time kind of cleaning stuff up, put Laura's belongings. You can tell the purse is kind of empty. He went through it. We have her ID in the trash bag in the kitchen still. He went through it and emptied it out and dumped a bunch of the stuff in the trash bags, which is probably why some of the receipts are in the Hyundai, some of the receipts are in the house. And I submit to you, so there's this couch. This couch was clearly moved. I think the defendant even says it was moved. Where was it originally? There's that big empty space where the drop cloth was. I submit to you that this is probably Laura's blood, that at some point she went down towards the couch, on the couch, and that this blood is likely hers. So then what's he got to do? Then he drags Laura's body down the hallway, wrapped up in the carpet. He drags Richard's body down the hallway, wrapped up in the carpet. Takes time, takes energy, takes effort. So what he was planning to do all along was to hide his crime. And what's got to be on his mind now? Nick. Nick is on his mind. He knows Nick is coming. He knows Nick will be home. He is specifically moving them because remember, his plan is to bury the bodies in the front yard, to dig a hole and bury them. If he's not expecting Nick, he doesn't need to move them. But he knows Nick's coming. And Richard was in one spot, Laura's in another. It's going to be hard for Nick to miss. So again, planning, calculation, thought behind it. Mops the floor of the blood. He told us that. And I mean, you could tell from the mop that it had been used, but mops the floor in between. Again, effort. So then what do we got? 4:22 p.m. on the 14th, defendant tells Summer Colt, I meant I'll hold you, LOL, my bad, Daddy's tired. Why are you so sleepy? Daddy works out, honey. Plus, car shopping was today. Car shopping was today. And the kids were little rascals. Now, you can see that that's over a period of time. The first message there is 4:22, but he's continuing to, the next message is actually at 5:19. Car shopping was today. That's while I submit to you, Richard and Laura are lying there dead in the residence and before Nick returns. He's still planning. He's still scheming. He's still lying. And he's tired because he's been swinging the hammer an awful lot. Dragging bodies. Mopping. So Nick gets home. Now, Does Nick get home the evening of the 14th? Does he get home sometime on the 15th? We really can't say. We know that there's a pizza box on December 14th at 4:55 p.m. It's got Nick's number on it. Now, does Nick get it? Does Nick bring it home? Unclear. But whenever Nick gets there, it actually take the defendant on his word, he probably doesn't kill Nick till early morning hours of the 16th. But in the meantime, 5:19 p.m. on the 14th, he's telling Summer Colt so that would be 5:32 p.m., sorry. Yes, ma'am. Or she says, you got a new car. Yes, ma'am. It was time for the other one to go. I traded it in for a 2013 Kia. There it is. SUV thing. More room, better vehicle. I'll still get good mileage too. So I submit to you they're dead. He's now acquired the 2013 Kia. In his mind, it's his. He swung the hammer for it. And really, I'm not sure which is worse. If this was the day before, if he actually didn't kill them until the 15th, but he's already telling her that he got the vehicle, and we all know what he's going to do. But no, I submit to you at this point, he has killed Richard and Laura. And he has now ascended to ownership, in his mind, of the Kia vehicle. It'll be great for winter. And then he says, I'll send you a pic tomorrow when the sun's up, my dear. Yeah, it's got butt warmers and everything. And goes on to flirt with her, which the number of these girls he's flirting with is fairly numerous. During that conversation, so would be 6:23 p.m., he's sending pictures and more flirting with Summer Colt from the crime scene. So we know he's there. You can see the bathroom, in particular in that photograph, the easiest thing to identify that what didn't move is that heater. You can see the same sink, and you can see the towel rack in the reflection there. That's where he is. His mind's on trying to hit on girls while there's two dead bodies in the house, and while Nick is either there waiting for his death or he's waiting for Nick to come back to kill him. So 15th this will coordinate to about 1 a.m. This girl, Marissa, contacts him, looks like out of the blue. Hey, long time no talk, how have you been? I've been doing okay. I'm actually in the middle of packing for Ohio. Why is he packing for Ohio? Because he's killed the people. That's what he was there to do. Now he's in the process. He's going to be coming back.
Can we approach you?
Okay. why don't I go ahead and give you a brief 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and hear more, okay? All right, so let me address the victim's family here. I understand why they're very frustrated, and it's because of the law, quite frankly. The state can only argue and only present evidence in regard to aggravating factors, and they're on one aggravating factor right now, which is basically cold calculated and they're premeditated. And then they have 3 more to argue. The defense, on the other hand, basically can say anything, because almost anything except for public policy arguments can be mitigating circumstances. So I can understand how it can be very frustrating for the family, because they can hardly say anything. They have given victim impact statements, and that's within the parameters of Payne versus Tennessee and all of the subsequent case law and the statute. And I know they're frustrated because the defense can basically say whatever they want, and they really can't say a whole lot, and the state really can't present anything more than aggravating factors or rebut mitigating the circumstances. So I understand their frustration. However, there will be a point, regardless of the verdicts, where they're going to be able to speak. And that's not yet, but it's going to happen. I'll allow them to speak. Now, the worst thing that can happen here is if we wait for this thing to go to trial for 6 years, which is a long time, and COVID was a part of that. Quite frankly, the Public Defender's Office had this case for a long time, and they sat on it and did nothing, and they refused to take any depositions because we weren't allowed to take depositions in person. They refused to take depositions by Zoom. Zoom was brand new. Nobody knew what it was. The public defender at the time refused to do any depositions by Zoom, and then of course eventually we got used to it, and now we're doing a whole lot of things by Zoom. But the worst thing that can happen is to wait around 6 years for this to finally happen. And then what if it does come back death and things are happening by the victim's family, which mandates that the case gets reversed and we're doing it again? That isn't in your best interest at all. Okay, now, I'm here refereeing not what the lawyers do so much, but what the victim's family is doing. And you don't want a record where some appellate court is going to say, this just doesn't seem fair to the defendant, and we're going to do it all over again. So in another 6 years, we're doing it again, okay? And it's not because the lawyers are doing anything improper or the witnesses, but it may appear to an appellate court that the victim's family is. So I have this request, okay? Don't be standing up, okay? Sit down like everybody else, okay? And then,
You want me to speak?
okay. And what's your name? Okay. All right, and then, all right, and then every day you've was shown up. I understand the family's been here every day. I did notice that some days you're all dressed up and some days you aren't. And then today you're in full military gear, right? So,
You know, where my father's funeral.
right. I understand that, all right? But that's not what the purpose of this is today, okay? And we don't want a situation where it appears as if you're trying to make a statement.
I'm not making a statement. I'm wearing this because I wore this to my father's funeral. He did this. So my point is.
I understand.
If you want me to leave, just tell me.
All right, well, I would like this, okay? Here's your three choices, okay? Change your clothes and come back, or I don't have a problem if you sit in the third row there behind those big guys, okay? And so you're less conspicuous, okay? Or,
I've had 7 surgeries and I have to move around. That's why I stand up.
okay, yeah.
20 years in the military.
He has been standing.
Yeah, he has been standing a lot. I've been noticing that, so,
This is discrimination. This is not the freedom that we fought for.
well, it's not. We don't want, I'm sure you don't want to risk having this case reversed, right? You don't want to do that.
The prosecution's closing because of the clothes that people are wearing.
Well,
In the back.
well, yeah, I mean, this is not unusual, okay?
I
I mean, we've had cases where people have come in with T-shirts that have the victims' photos on them or faces on them, okay? You can't do that, okay? We've had police officers who have been the victims on death penalty cases, and then a whole bunch of police officers came in uniform. You can't do that either, okay? So I'm just trying to protect this case, which is in your best interest, okay?
What you're saying is what we wore, all of us, to our father's memorial service cannot be worn today.
Well, you can wear that, there's no problem with that. Richard can wear that, there's no problem with that, all right? But it just seems like that he's just trying to make a statement somehow with wearing his military uniform right now. Maybe he's not, okay, but it's not the intent, it's the appearance, okay? So that's why if he wants to change, that's fine. If he wants to sit in the third row, that's fine. If he wants to leave and watch it on streaming or whatever, that's fine too. But let's not risk the whole case. I mean, people have put in way too much work on this thing, right? And you've gone through enough grief on this whole thing where you don't want to have to do it again, right? Because of something like that. Okay? You will have an opportunity to speak. You can wear whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, but today's not the day for that. Today's the day to make sure that there's no issues with the case. And I've been working really hard to make sure there's not an issue here. All right? So that's all I ask, okay? Is just like everybody else, you sit and you listen.
So he'll get pushed to the back. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, the third row, okay? I think we have like 10 rows here, okay? So the third row, that's not that far back, okay? And he'll just be behind a couple big guys back there. Or he can change, or if he wants to watch on streaming, that's fine too, okay? And then after that, after we're done with the verdicts and everything, then you can wear whatever you want. It's a totally different story, because obviously I'm not going to be influenced by anything, but we want to make sure that none of the jurors, we're going to have 12, we have 14 now, we're going to have 12, you don't want an argument that one of them was influenced by something that the victims are doing, or the victim's family is doing. Yes?
Judge, the only problematic thing I see with him sitting with his uniform in the, well, I mean, he shouldn't have worn it in the first place, but what I see problematic about him sitting in the third row is that he has to apparently get up all the time, which we've all seen that, but he's been in regular clothes. So if he's not, if he's having to get up, and he's going to decide when he wants to get up and sit down and get up and sit down, then I'd ask that he leave in his uniform and, like the court said, change and come back. And if he can't change for some reason, the other day when he was going to wear his military uniform, he was going to bring extra clothes in case he wouldn't allow it. But if he doesn't have that here today, then I'd ask he be excused if he's going to keep getting up in that uniform and watch it online.
All right, and there was no discussion with me about him possibly wearing a uniform, but apparently there was with the lawyers previously, is that right?
He had
Yes.
originally indicated that he wanted to make his impact statement in his uniform because of the
he had worn that to his father's funeral, and he felt that his father was a big reason why he was successful in the military. We had discussed that with defense counsel. We alerted them to the fact that he wanted to do that so it could be addressed before the court, before there was anything, before the jury. And then when we came here that day, he had independently elected not to wear it. So it was not an issue that we had to bring up.
Well,
But it was an issue that we disagreed about.
in addition to alerting us, they said he will be downstairs. He'll be away from the jury until it can be addressed.
And he
That
will
was
bring
true.
extra clothes.
Last Thursday.
All right, so, I mean, he has been standing and walking around throughout the whole trial, but it hasn't been a distraction. I haven't noticed anyone watching him doing it, and apparently, I guess he has to do it for medical reasons or for physical reasons, right? So, all right, so, I'll have to rule on this, and this is really for their benefit, which is, he's allowed in the courtroom, he's allowed to walk around because of his physical issues, but it's not going to be in uniform, okay? So, bailiffs, if you can make sure that that happens, okay? That, if he comes in, that's fine. If he needs to walk around a little bit. And again, this is our biggest courtroom. This is a really big courtroom. And if he's walking back there, I don't think it's anything that's going to distract the jury. I don't think it's been distracting the jury so far. I mean, we have Mr. Sarabia giving a closing argument here. We have a PowerPoint in the presentation. They've been looking at Mr. Sarabia and the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoints are in 3 different spots here where they can look, really 2 different spots for the jury, and that's not in view of anyone in the audience. In other words, that's not in the field of view for seeing in the audience. So I think everything's fine, but we need to obviously have an abundance of caution, and then we've only said it once during this entire 2-week proceeding, which might be a record, and that is death is different. We have to be careful here, right? All right, so we know what the rules are. He can be in here. If he needs to walk around, I guess it's okay. Don't be a distraction, but no uniform, he can change. Hopefully he did bring a change of clothes because he was directed to, right? By the state?
We didn't have that conversation today. There
All right.
was nothing about it leading up to today.
Okay. All right, so everybody understands?
I reflect that my closing statement has been captivating.
Actually, I'll say this, it's been pretty good, okay? And it's been pretty interesting, so they've been paying attention. All right, so do you think we're ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's bring them in. All right, welcome back, members of the jury. Mr. Sarabia, you may continue.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently, I am so long-winded that people need a bathroom break. So that'll probably happen again. But we were talking, so we are talking about the 15th. We were at 1 a.m., which would be in between him killing Nick or killing Richard and Laura, and when he kills Nick. He's still just interacting with people. Everything's great. Middle of packing for Ohio. So then we get to the top message there, comes in about 9:47 a.m. on the 15th. And what's interesting about that message is Bella's finally over being sick, so we can leave for Ohio this weekend. A couple things to say about that. And if you've been paying attention to the messages as we've been going through them, and not to say the ones I've been highlighting, he's been saying that Bella has been sick for a while. What's interesting about that is the Walgreens receipt appears to be for children's medicine. And wouldn't it be just like this defendant when Laura's already been at CVS? CVS and Walgreens are almost interchangeable. To call her on her way back, make sure where she is, and ask her to pick up some children's medicine for his kid, so to delay her a little bit because he's lying in wait to kill her. But anyway, he's leaving for Ohio this weekend. Keep in mind, so the 15th would have been a Saturday, so he may be planning that his business will be done shortly. Domino's Pizza, the evening of the 15th, just before 7 p.m. Again, we have Nick's number on there. The defendant said that they got Domino's, they had a good time. I submit to you maybe they got Domino's twice, or they're hanging out for a long period of time. And if they're smoking marijuana, eating edibles, whatever they're doing, watching TV, that could have been one last rousing celebration. But we know that there's Domino's on the 15th, which is also, you'll notice the pattern is, once the defendant starts killing, and Richard and Laura aren't there to provide meals and make meals, now we're starting to see pizza and McDonald's, and the occasional Dunkin' Donuts. But pizza and McDonald's from this point forward. So he kills Nick. This couch wouldn't have been here. This couch would have been where the darker brown couch is. You see all that blood spatter. You see all the blood this defendant came out during this defendant's attack on his buddy. So yeah, I submit to you that that couch was here, in this room, right where that brown couch is, because we see blood spatter up there, painted over, blood spatter over there, and I decided not to bore you with all the blood spatter pictures again, but there was blood spatter all over this area. And even in other areas of the room, which again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, blood spatter there, which front door's kind of towards the back, I believe. Blood there. All that would have been from Nick. So now everybody's dead. Now what do we see the defendant doing? On the 16th, 1:45 p.m., now he's shopping. We get the receipt from the 2013 Kia when they catch up to it in Ohio, and we have him shopping with his two kids. What's he getting? He's getting the air fresheners. You see those three white things at the very edge of the conveyor belt. If you watch it, the video, you can tell a little bit better. But you see 1, 2 from the counter in the bathroom, and 1 on the counter in Nick's room. Why? For the smell, because it smells. And the shirt he's wearing ends up in the laundry, not quite yet, but it ends up in the laundry, washed. He leaves it there, and it is recovered. So then, 1:52 p.m. on the 16th is the middle message. Hey babe, a lot happened. I'm going to give you a call later. I'm still coming to Ohio, don't worry. Yeah, a lot happened. He killed 3 people. When will you be here? We'll see the rest of that conversation in a few minutes. He goes to McDonald's. This is actually 2:03 p.m. He goes to McDonald's. That McDonald's is right there in Tarpon Springs. Later that evening, 6:11 p.m., he says, Summer Colt, she's upset that he hasn't been answering. You need a better answer. He says, I'm sorry, babe. I've been busy all day. I'm in the process of selling a lot of my stuff. By the way, I already bought you Christmas stuff. So then he goes to GameStop, 7:07 p.m., and he's actually there for a period of time. And you can see, thanks, Shelby Nealy. We found that in the house. We're going to talk about some of that later. But there's a couple of reasons I'm going through all this way. But we got him there. We see him. Not going to play the long video for you. But he's there with his 2 kids, same shirt, selling all of Nick's video games, trading them in for more video games, because that's his priority, is video games. He's got to be doing something while he's in between burying bodies. So then he goes to McDonald's, 7:18 p.m. on US 19 in Palm Harbor. So then, and this is a little confusing because remember we go from the bottom up, and it's the way I did it, left to right. So now, the defendant says to Summer Colt, this is 10:26 p.m. on the 16th. Nick probably hasn't even been dead 24 hours yet. Hey, you, so I'm trying to get the kids to sleep, so I'm going to try and explain what's going on. Basically, long story short, I got robbed by my cousin while I was getting an oil change. He took my money. I had an envelope. He was also watching my kids and took off as soon as I got home. $6,325 gone. She's appropriately upset. I only had like $700 on me in my person. All lies. Oh, forgot the other side. It was at where I was staying in an envelope. It's interesting, he says he's not telling her where he's staying. It was at where I was staying. She's like, why don't you put it in the bank? Reasonable question. He doesn't like banks. Keep going. So then we are still on the evening, about 10:27 on the 17th. Yeah, that's what took all day yesterday. Did you get it back? Banks just take your money. You see the way the conversation is going. Also, I'm in the middle of selling my grandfather's coin collection. It's not his grandfather's coin collection. She asks, is it selling? Yeah, but because it's Sunday, not a lot of places were open. Remember, 16th is Sunday. So she's, again, appropriately, why you have $7,000. You should put it in a safe. And he says, which is more of lies, it was in a safe. Baby cakes. Then he starts sending photos from the crime scene. Again, we're at like 10:30 p.m. on the 16th. We know that location is right there. You can see the piece of furniture, you can see the curtain, you can see the table. He has been going through the Ivantic's belongings for his own. Sends more photographs because he wants to brag about all the stuff he's got. Again, same location. Because I'm an idiot and decided to leave it home since I didn't think my cousin would rob me. She responds, I'm just glad my kids are okay and he didn't make off with your stuff. Let's stop there for a second. Look at that. It's going to play into one of the mitigators later. I'm just glad my kids are okay from the robbery that never happened. This is what he does. This is what he does. He uses them. He talks about them like that. Like, he doesn't care about his kids there. He doesn't care about his kids any of the times that we're going to talk about that he talks about them. They're just another thing to try and gain sympathy from this woman. I'm just glad my kids are okay. And by the way, we recovered that laundry basket, you see it right there, and it had a lot of the same items in it, and other items you can see from the table. That was in his address in Ohio. And then he sends a photograph of that be my safe. Again, 10:30 p.m., roughly 10:32 p.m. on the 16th. That be my safe. It's bragging. We know where the safe is. It's right behind that door. It's not his safe. But there he is. He's in the crime scene, taking ownership of all the things, using his kids as a vehicle to gain sympathy. So we move on. Now, Detective Anderson told us close to 4 p.m. he was actually at a pawn shop selling some of the jewelry. I don't have any fun exhibits for you for that. But on the 17th at 6:02 p.m., he goes to McDonald's on US 19 in Newport Richey. And then on the 17th at 7:41 p.m., which is the top one, okay, I should be up in town this week, just so you know. So then, this is around just before midnight on the 17th, going into the 18th. And this is another, plays into some of the mitigators here, but I included the one on the 3rd just so you can see that that conversation ended. So on the 18th, he, out of nowhere, says, "Holy F, you'll never believe what just happened." Tell me. Remember that useless dad of mine that died when I was 17? That's another thing that he brings up a lot for sympathy, by the way, is you'll be able to see through a lot of the evidence.
Objection, non-statutory aggravation.
Overruled.
Yeah. Sorry, that sounds a lot more harsh than I really meant it. I meant a lot of effed up stuff this year and got a little colder toward certain stuff that used to hurt my feelings. Anyways, I inherited $25,000. And she goes, "Well, no, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything." And she says, "How?" He stored a lot of his stuff, and I'm editing out the bad words, at his friend's house. His friend found out I was in Texas. He's not in Texas. He's in Florida. Took me to the shed my father built, and OMG, dude, $25,000 in a briefcase, rings upon rings that are thousands of dollars, a coin collection that can't even be fit in a whole picture. He kept it all this time for me. No effing way. Well, to be honest, he had no idea about the money. 'Twas in an envelope in all these coins. He then sends a video. We've seen the video. He's flashing money, he's flashing coins. We see where his head's at. Does he care about the kids? No. Yeah, well, my dad was a criminal genius. There's no way he just earned all this. She's in awe. Who are you telling, LOL? I'm completely okay with how 2018 turned out. He's sitting in the kitchen of a house where there are 3 rotting bodies that he bashed in the head with a hammer. But he is completely okay with how 2018 turned out. And then we see it again. She's being nice, dude, super happy for you, you deserve this. Thank you. I'm just thankful for my kids. A year's rent paid in full will barely dent me. Anyway, you can see a screenshot from the video right there on the left, and then you see the envelope that we recovered from the Kia on the right. You can tell it's the same envelope, just with additional writing on it. And then we are at Walmart. 10:30 around. It's actually a decent amount of time that he's there, but 10:31 a.m. he's at Walmart, wearing a different shirt. The other one's probably being washed now. Clearly him, clearly his kids. We see him buying the spray paint and the masks. because it smells. Now, again, we're going to talk about the mitigators later, but one of the mitigators, this will play to, smells bad enough, the chemicals are bad enough that he knows by, this is now day 2 or 3, he needs masks. He's going to be there many days later. You think the kids are wearing masks? He also buys it's not in the screenshot, but he buys the new Punisher shirt that he's going to be wearing in later videos. So he goes to McDonald's, 11:36 a.m. on US 19. It's actually right next to that Walmart in Port Richey. Chicken nuggets for the kids. And there we see him, and we now know that he has been using the 2013 Kia. And you can't see that at all on that screen, but I submit to you, you can look at the photographs and evidence. It is clearly this defendant, Shelby Nealy. Then we got to go to Home Depot. There's where we found the receipt. There is the receipt. There's the items on the receipt. 18th at 12:27 p.m. Based on the timing, probably had to go there just about right after McDonald's. There he is. I got that one for you because you can see his shoes. You can see that the tops of his shoes are blue on the 18th. Keep that in mind. There he is. Yes, it's actually, he goes in, he leaves, and comes right back in, and then he goes shopping, and then he checks out, and we see him getting the rope, and you can see in the cart there, he's getting the canvas cloths, because that's all part of his plan. Remember, what he did with his wife was bury her in trash bags in the backyard. The plan is to mess up this house just like the wife and bury them in, there is no backyard, in the front yard. But now he has graduated from the trash bags, maybe because he realized that that wasn't going to work with this group, but he's graduated to the canvas materials. He even told us that. And the rope. Again, you see the rope at the bottom of the floor of that bottom right photograph. And there's the canvas from that empty package there, and canvas, top of the body. Around this time, he's got to be digging the hole. Because then we get to the 18th, 3:23 p.m. I submit to you that about now he's realizing the plan needs to change. So Noah Mather says, "What's up?" The defendant says, "Want to take a road trip." Now this conversation you can see actually goes on over the course of a couple of days because he doesn't respond very quickly. So Noah Mather says, "Where to?" "Bro, what's up?" Defendant responds a while later, "I'm thinking to Clearwater, Florida." Keep in mind, he's not told anybody he's in Clearwater. That's not come up, or in Tarpon Springs, in this area of the world. But now he's thinking of a trip to Clearwater, Florida. So Noah Mather naturally inquires further. When are you thinking? Like February. When? Like days. Dude, the day of love. Valentine's Day. Why? This is the plan. The plan is now shifted. He's realizing, and by that last message is the 20th, he's now realizing, I'm not going to be able to get these bodies in this hole. Maybe because the ladies that live around there have been asking too many questions, maybe too many people have seen him, or just because Richard is that heavy and he is that lazy. But he's realizing he's got to come back. He's making arrangements, he's planning, now I got to come back. Why? He's got to continue to execute the plan that he had originally, which is to bury the bodies. That worked with Jamie. We go on. "18th, 4:01 p.m. and conversation starts a little bit before that. So 18th, so this would be 3:35 p.m. He's talking, "Hey, would you guys want to come down with me and take a trip to Colorado if I paid everything? Food, hotel. That's a lot of money. Would love to. If I flew you two down here where I'm at, would you guys drive with me there?" What's the drive from where you're at? A day, 4-hour stop? Okay, that's a long road trip. I got a Kia though. So 4:01 p.m., there it is. I got a Kia though. My Kia. I bash you in the head, I get to keep the Kia. Been planning on it since even before then, as the messages indicate. And then he sends her a picture of the Kia in the crime scene here in Tarpon Springs. That's yours? Yes. That's awesome, man. We move on. Now we're at about 10:34 p.m. on the 18th. Again, now he's setting up his return to Ohio. You know any landlord people? Yeah, I do. Yeah, know about tenants. How are you and your kids doing? You moving back? He says, yes, I'll be there Friday, actually. Permanently? Yes, ma'am. You can have me whenever you want me now. Okay, good to know. How's your kids doing? They're great. They have a conversation about that. What kind of rent he can pay? He says, $900 a month. And my journey down here is at a close. I got what I needed. Now I need it up in Ohio. Again, we're seeing the aftermath of the plan. This was the reason he came down. I got what I needed, which was all these people dead. They're not going to talk anymore, and I have all their belongings. I got a lot of money. Now my journeys are closed. Going to Ohio. Let's not forget Mom. On the 19th at 9 a.m., he sends a photo of the Kia in the crime scene, same photo. Oh, is it yours? Yes, 2013 Kia. Great. Gotta say, every time I felt like your son, it's when I'm driving that car. So, geez, happy for him. But out of the blue there, he's just like, look at me. I got a new car. 19th, or I'm sorry, 20th, 11:33 p.m., he's eating at Dunkin' Donuts. We got this receipt from the 2013 Kia. Dunkin' Donuts in Holiday. All right, so here on the 20th at 12:46 p.m., he posts on Facebook for everyone to see a photo of his daughter with the pink hippo in the crime scene, on the couch, with blood on it, and the spray paint. So we know by this time he's already been working. He's already been covering up all the blood spatter over there. Not very well, but we see the drip. You see it on the far left right there, and we see it on the couch in the crime scene. We see the pink hippo. And then we have McDonald's on December 21st, 1:02 p.m. He's eating again. We're almost ready to follow this guy out of town. But on the 21st, he's at Walmart again, this time in Hudson with the new shirt that I think he will remain in until he leaves Florida. And notice too here, there's no kids with him. He's by himself. Also, and there's a photo from the Home Depot picture. You can see the difference in his shoes. Blue shoes at Home Depot, and there's a lot of other places on the Home Depot video you can see it. But he's been busy with the paint, with the chemicals and everything, because that's all part of his plan. But let's not forget, in the meantime, he's got to be texting the relatives, make sure that they're not onto him, because that was also part of his plan with Jamie. It worked so well then, he is carrying out his plan with Laura. We are fine. The talking part of my phone is broke, and we are in Texas visiting Jamie and Shelby and my precious grandbabies. Laura's dead. 21st, he has Domino's Pizza. That's at 5:54 p.m. He uses his phone number this time, same phone number that we will see up in Ohio. And then on the 22nd at McDonald's, he's there 8:21 p.m. Maybe the kids didn't like the Domino's, but we see him driving that Kia again. And then the next day, we're heading out of town. 23rd at 2:31 p.m. County Road 54, Newport Richie, got to get those chicken nuggets. There he is, Laura Ivancic's 2013 Kia vehicle. And then again, we pick him up in Macon, Georgia, I believe 9:30, thereabouts, that evening. Same vehicle, same clothing, same guy. Now he's going to Ohio. In the meantime, so 26th, we have him connected to that house, 1573 Newman Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. He is telling his friend, Miriam Al-Nasseri, look at my new house. You can see the address. It's my house. Bathroom is fixed up. When I was in Texas getting robbed by my blood. He's still going with that robbery story, but he's claiming it was in Texas because that's where his family from that side is. Again, it's all part of the plan. He just wanted people to know he was here. He knew that all along going in. There was never oh, hi, I'm going to be in Florida. I'm a criminal genius, my dear. There's nothing I can't do anymore. And then she's tell me how you got the place, how you got the money. I have to tell you in person. But let's not forget, he's got to throw off the relatives. I'm sorry, I just got this. My phone has been acting really weird. I can't even call or hear anything on the phone. Is everything okay? I'm so sorry. I just got this. My phone has been acting really weird. It's a conversation with two different people. I can't even call or hear her on the phone. But no, we are going to be in Texas for a while with Jamie. We are currently dealing with a family emergency with her. And I didn't give you the rest of the text, but you can see he's already trying to give excuses as to where they are, why they wouldn't be at home. Because remember, his plan at this point is still to come back and bury the bodies. We are in the process of talking to the police and trying to find Shelby. His vehicle was found abandoned on the side of the road. We know everybody is worried, but we have a lot going on. Trying to give himself some cover in case people see him in Ohio. Also, if I get time to, I will. I think the message was, please call. I'm currently dealing with a family emergency with Jamie in Texas. Jamie's been dead for a year, almost. So we catch up to him. I say we, Detective Anderson and law enforcement catch up to him on that Newman Avenue address, find Nick's ID, Richard's ID, the coins, the money, missing revolver, Kia. So those are our facts. That's what we know about what the defendant was doing, where he's been moving. So now the defendant does confess. And what does he say about it? So let's talk about that for a minute. I picked out some interesting things. Again, I'm going to refer to you by time, the timestamps. What does he say about Richard? At 11:38 a.m., in about 30 seconds, he says, you ask Richard a question, you get like a 3-hour conversation. Yeah, really thinks a lot of the guy who has let him live with him, who has tried to support him and Jamie in the past, and has been nothing but good to him. Earlier, 1:44 a.m. and 25 seconds, he says, when Laura's out, he says, that's the perfect time to get rich, because he's been waiting for that perfect time. 1:45 a.m., 0 seconds, he estimates 5 to 7 hits on Richard. Well, we heard from the medical examiner it was at least 7 hits to Richard in the head, and 3 to the neck or body. And so, come back to that in a little bit later. Other things he says. About Laura, he says, when she gets back, he was lying in wait for her. He says, quote, I welcome her and everything. He's literally waiting by the door to say hello, make sure to take care of business. 1:47 a.m. and 40 seconds, he says, I take her out before she can notice anything. He says he hit Laura, and about 1:45 a.m. and 25 seconds, he says he hits Laura 4 to 5 times. The medical examiner says at least 5 blows to the head. Nick, gotta love what he says about Nick. At 1:38 a.m. and about 50 seconds, he says, Nick wasn't even a person. 1:42 a.m. and about 45 seconds, I waited for Nick to come home. Spent one last night with him. 1:58 a.m. and 50 seconds, he estimates he hit Nick 7 to 8 times. The ME says at least 3. But remember, you keep saying at least, because if you get hit multiple times in the same spot, she can't necessarily distinguish that. He says at least 7 to 8 times. His estimates on the other two are kind of low. I submit to you his estimate on Nick is probably low as well. And, you know, the photos are not pretty, but Nick's forehead is completely bashed in. A couple other fun things he says when he's talking to Detective Anderson. At 1:41 a.m. and 45 seconds, he says, I almost got out of it. He's talking about killing him. I almost got out of it. I looked for every excuse. I wanted it to be as quick and painless as possible. 11:53 a.m. and 30 seconds says, it breaks my heart every day. They were good people and they didn't deserve that. At 11:54 a.m. and 16 seconds, he says, it hurts my heart. You know, I love my wife greatly. You know, there's a couple other points where he says, you know, I looked for every excuse. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Nealy, for looking for an excuse to not kill these people, for putting them out of their misery, kindly, according to you, trying to make it quick and painless. Perhaps we should give him a medal. There's the audacity of this guy. I almost got out of it. Things he says about Jamie. This one was kind of telling. 2:28 in the morning and 1 second, he says, for a long time I focused on the bad because I wanted to hate her. Oh, he hated her all right. 11:19 a.m., 0 seconds, he says, Jamie gasped out that she would get the help she needs, and said, I love you, as he's strangling her. That probably didn't happen that way, but that's the girl that he decided at that point he was going to end her life. 11:20 a.m. and 50 seconds. This was also pretty telling. This is when they're talking about Jamie's death. Because, you know, in his version, Jamie has a knife and is going to go after Bella. So Bella's there. He disarms Jamie. And Detective Anderson asks him, like, so where's Bella? Like, oh, she must have run away. I think she ran away. Yeah. Whatever. 11:21, 45 seconds. He says he grabbed the hammer and hit her. Remember, that only came out in the second interview, the part with the hammer. 11:22 a.m. and 45 seconds. I only struck Jamie one time with the hammer. 11:49 a.m. and 24 seconds. I only struck her once with that hammer. And then 11:23:20 a.m. he says, afraid she was still alive and just wanted to end it. One time with the hammer. Except we know that that's not true because Dr. Ignacio did the autopsy. She was hit 5 times, at least 5 times in the head, on one side of her head that was bashed in and caved in, and at least 7 times on the other side of the head. That's not one time in the head. And I submit to you, we're going to talk about this more. The defendant minimizes all the bad stuff. Like, yes, he confesses to it, but he has been minimizing. He minimizes in the confession of Detective Anderson, and we can show that he did so, especially with Jamie. 11:24 a.m., 55 seconds. He's talking about what his mindset is. He's like, her parents are definitely going to find out. Again, that's the motive. That's why he kills the 3 of them. 1:38 a.m. and 30 seconds. He says he didn't want to get caught for Jamie. 2:31 a.m., 0 seconds. Driving to Florida, thinking of killing them. Describes how he was lying in wait. 2:14 a.m. and 47 seconds. Trash the house like I did with my ex-wife, because again, that's the plan. That's what he did. He had a plan going there. He knew what he was going to do. He was going to bury the bodies. That was going to mess up the house. And remember, I think he even said there that he trashed the house before he realized he wasn't going to be able to bury the bodies. He says he would plan to come back in a month or 2. Well, we have evidence of that. One of my favorite statements that he makes, 11:53 in the morning and 40 seconds. It's very telling. This defendant says, now it's almost as if it was all done for nothing. But I can't believe that. You know, I have to believe that my kids are going to get a happy ending, and that I didn't sacrifice those people for no effing reason. He wants to believe that he did it for another reason than to stay out for 3 more weeks. But the reality is, the reason he killed those 3 people is entirely to hide his crimes. 11:50 in the morning and 40 seconds, he says, "I'm just trying to not get on death row." So, let's take all those facts and let's apply them to the aggravators. And the judge is going to instruct you on the law, but for each separate count, I'm calling them counts, each separate count, you have Laura, and the order that the count 1 is Laura, I believe count 2 is Richard, count 3 is Nicholas. For each separate count, it is its own analysis. So let's start with, I'm going to start with Laura, I'm going to start with Richard, which is count 2. But we got Richard. So what are the aggravators? Well, first one, Shelby Nealy was previously or contemporaneously convicted of another capital felony or a felony involving the use of violence to another person. Now, the other 2 murders, so for Richard, the murder of Laura, the murder of Nicholas, each count, Laura by herself would count as that aggravator and satisfy it. Nicholas by himself would count as the aggravator and satisfy it. Jamie, felony of violence, would count as an aggravator by itself and satisfy it. He triples up this aggravator, which I submit to you, this is the most aggravating aggravator that he could do, is to kill another person, and he triples it. So we're going to put Jamie. Just to give you guys some idea about the weight of this. This aggravator, felony involving the use of violence to another person, could be satisfied by any felony of violence. And I'll give you an example, a hypothetical. I go into Walmart, I steal something, walk out, loss prevention begins to stop me. Hey, you can't go, and I push him down to get out, and I take off. I've now committed a robbery. That would satisfy this aggravator. But, as we can all look at, not the same level of weight. Sure, I have the prior offense of violence, but it doesn't carry the same weight. He satisfied this aggravator with the worst felonies he could commit. The most weighty felonies he commit. 3 times over. And I submit to you, the analysis could almost end there. I'm an attorney, so I'm going to keep talking, and it won't. It's a hard thing when you go through the jury selection process to dance around that, because the aggravators are largely out there for everybody to see, but it's almost insurmountable, unimaginable to get past the level of weight for that aggravator. And you can consider that. That is now you know all the information. Now you have all the evidence. Now you can do the weighing process, and you can look at it and say, hey, that's an aggravator. It's not just 2 other deaths for Richard. There's 3, and the weight of that just cannot be outweighed, especially by anything presented by the defendant. So we go on for Richard. Second category of aggravators. The first-degree murder was committed for the purpose of avoiding or preventing a lawful arrest. Yes, I just spent a huge amount of time going over that with you. That was his plan all along. His plan all along was to kill all 3 of these people to hide the fact and avoid the arrest for Jamie. And so I'm just going to tack that one on here. Shorthand arrest. Another aggravator, which again, it's eliminating potential witnesses. He's trying to frustrate the justice system. That is also a pretty weighty aggravator. Now, I would agree. Doesn't weigh nearly as heavily as the murders themselves, but very heavy aggravator. come back to the last one in a second. Just skip to number 4. The murder was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense of moral or legal justification. So there's some definitions of those things. And again, what I've gone over with you, spend all the slides going over with you, he had this planned out. And it doesn't have to be a good plan. It doesn't have to be a successful plan. It doesn't have to be a well-educated plan. He had a plan. He thought about it a long time. He sat with those people for a week. He drove from Texas to do this. That's cold, that's calculated, and it's definitely premeditated. It has the heightened sense of premeditation. Now, Jamie, that one wouldn't have that. Whatever happened there, it appears to have been a decision he made in the moment. Now, he may have intentionally killed her. There may have been the level of premeditation that would just satisfy that definition, but it wasn't necessarily the cold and calculated and premeditated. It's a good contrast. These three, Richard, absolutely. So I'm going to.
Okay.
And again, you can add all kinds of facts. Like shorthanded is cold. All kinds of facts to that in terms of waited till he was alone, waited till Laura was out on that shopping trip, waited for the moment to get him. All those facts, you can add to that. Now, let's talk about heinous, atrocious, and cruel for a moment. And I submit to you, these factors, they're easily proven, there's no question. Heinous, atrocious, and cruel is the hardest one. Like if there's any of these aggravators that don't necessarily apply, that's the one that the evidence is hardest to apply to. Why? Because in order for a crime to be especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel, it deals with what a person experiences before they die, while they are conscious and able to experience. The idea that their death is impending. So you'll notice we're not seeking that for Laura. Her death very well could have been, probably was, especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Because I don't take the defendant at his word that, oh, I just knocked her in the back of the head and she was out. Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, the evidence just doesn't give us anything to say that. We could speculate all day long, but the evidence doesn't support it. Now the other two, there is some evidence. So let's talk about Richard. The interesting thing about Richard, so one, he's a tall guy. I mean, you can see the IDs are in evidence. I want to say 5'11". Taller than this defendant. If Richard is walking, the defendant is going to have, it's not going to be an easy blow to get Richard the first time in the head and get a good solid shot that's going to knock him out. Moreover, what's interesting about Richard is he has 2 blows here in the chest and 1 blow in the neck, which implies that there was some sort of struggle, some recognition, because otherwise you wouldn't have any of those. You wouldn't need to do that. You don't with Laura. With Laura, it's all to the head. Even with Nick, it's all to the head. Even with Jamie, it was all to the head. But not with Richard. So with Richard, I submit to you that injuries indicate that there must have been some struggle. And as he gets the better of Richard and hits him multiple times in the head, sure, Richard goes down. Or Richard knows he's going down, and Richard knows that the guy that married his daughter, that he has helped out, that he has allowed to come into his house and has been staying the holiday season with him, that he treated his family, is coming after him with a hammer and is not relenting. And that makes it heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Not only that, we know from the defendant, as Detective Anderson digs in a little bit, well, Richard was making noises over there. He wasn't actually dead. I had to go back and whack him some more times. And we know from the medical examiner, these are not injuries that you expect to instantaneously kill somebody. It takes time. So Richard's death, I submit to you, was heinous, atrocious, and cruel. And again, in terms of the way that you can qualify for these aggravators, this defendant picked the heaviest ones he could, the ones that are insurmountably weighty. So, now let's turn to Laura. So Laura, we already know. Laura's actually count one. We get Jamie. We get Richard. And we get Nick. So one thing on Laura, and let's talk about the weight of that for a minute. The defendant killed Jamie. The defendant kills Richard. Richard is dead. The defendant has committed murder in the first degree against Richard. The lowest sentence he can get is a life sentence at that point. But he goes on to kill Laura. If he gets a life sentence, then it's like saying, well, you get Laura for free. And Nick. You get those two for free. There's no difference in the punishment. That's just an idea of how weighty those are. So then, committed for the lawful purpose of avoiding or preventing lawful arrest. Well, what's interesting about this one, for Laura, and as we'll see with Nick, is this actually starts to weigh even heavier with Laura. Why? Because now he's not just trying to avoid arrest for Jamie, now he's already all in with Richard. So he can't very well just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it anymore. Laura, you're fine. There's Richard, lying there in the dining room. Now he's avoiding arrest for Jamie and for Richard. And he waits, same kind of cold, calculated method, but now he waits longer. He waits for an hour or more, probably hours, sitting there for Laura to come home with the hammer. He knows, like, if there was any doubt, if there was any question back and forth in his mind before, he knows what he's doing now. He's just thinking about it. What's he going to do? Again, maybe he calls her to get the medication, maybe not. But he waits, he greets her. He's right there to greet her when she comes in. And then he bashes her head in with a hammer. Cold, calculated, and premeditated. And to avoid arrest. So there you see, again, all of these, any one of these would be enough to outweigh all the mitigators. All of them together, it's just ridiculously insurmountable. So now let's turn to Nick. There's a couple interesting things we have with Nick. So one, by the time we get to Nick, now he's earned himself a life sentence for murder in the first degree twice over, with Richard and with Laura. Let's not forget that he previously killed Jamie. But now he knows he needs to kill Nick. And the interesting thing about it is this, is like it really exposes the motive. Why is he doing this? To avoid arrest. There was no danger Nick was going to get his kids. That's not going to happen. He doesn't know what kind of parent Nick would have been. Like that's not a motivation. All the things he says to Detective Anderson about like, oh, I just didn't want my kids to go with him. One, not true. Two, doesn't apply to Nick. Doesn't apply to Nick at all. The only reason he has to kill Nick and wants to kill Nick and has planned to kill Nick is because now he's killed Jamie, and he doesn't want to be arrested for that, and he killed Richard and Laura, and he doesn't want to be arrested for that. So he waits for Nick to come home. He wants to spend another night with him, because he's his friend. And then, over that whole time, whatever they're doing, he knows this is Nick's last day to live. This is Nick's last hours to live. In fact, I get to decide when Nick's last seconds are. So the cold is, it's weightier and weightier. And it was pretty heavy over here on Richard. Now, heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Now, in the interview, defendant's talking about Nick. And he says, I hit Nick, and Nick shoots up. Or pops up, I think are his words. Nick pops up. But he didn't feel anything. I'm sure of it. But then when he goes on to describe, it's like, Nick wasn't like the others. It got a lot messier. It got a lot nastier. Why? Because he hits Nick in the forehead, and then Nick pops up. And now, Nick is seeing what's going on. Nick is experiencing, geez, this guy is coming at me with a hammer, and it hurts, and it's bad. And by the way, the hammer's in evidence. Feel free to see what it's like. It's not a small thing to take that hammer, raise it up, swing it down, raise it up again, and swing it down. There's multiple actions he has to go through each swing that he is doing, and he hits him once, and Nick pops up. There's time there. There's time there, and at that point, Nick's not going to just take it lying down. You see blood spatter all over that room. Now, ultimately, Nick will end up on that couch. I don't see any way around that with the crime scene. I think he's definitely lying there dead on the couch, gets dragged off by probably on the pillow, gets dragged off by the blanket. Defendant disposes of the pillow in a trash bag in the Hyundai. But that is the heinous, atrocious, and cruel for Nick. I left it up. There we go. So, I think it came up at some point, but can these all be evaluated separately? Is it possible to come back with death on Nick and not on Richard? It is possible. But I submit to you there is no reason to, and you shouldn't, because although the aggravators may weigh slightly different between the three people, ultimately the other bodies for each one weigh heavy enough to outweigh all the stuff that they presented. So now let's talk about all the things the defense talked about. Let's talk about the defense's case. Who'd you hear from? Who did the defense present? They presented Dr. Heather Holmes. Seems like a nice woman. Didn't have all the information. Only had what she was given to review. A lot of stuff that she didn't review. But what did she ultimately even say? Well, must be noon. That's more distracting than you might think. Dr. Holmes says, well, he's got depression. Okay. Does that really mitigate much? Oh, we'll get to that when we read things, but is it really important? Not substantially. Plus, she sees him, I believe the first time she said she saw him was in 2023. All right. by the time she sees him in 2023, perhaps he is depressed again. And, you know, that you can go, I'm going to take you through some of the records in a moment, but the records definitely indicate he has been diagnosed with depression at various points. But in 2023, I'm sure he is depressed. He's looking at these charges. He's living in custody. Of course, he should be depressed. Does it weigh anything? Talk about that shortly, but no. What else of interest did she really say? Dependent personality, I mean, again, talk about that when we weigh these things, but does it really amount to anything? No. Plus, all this stuff that he did by himself. Not like anybody put him up to this or convinced him to do it. So it really doesn't have any whole lot of bearing on the facts of this case. One interesting thing she said, though, is this is a person who is completely unable to handle strong emotion, poor control of emotions. She's pretty adamant about that. Well, that's interesting, too, because these three cases, Richard, Laura, and Nick, there was nothing emotional about this. That's the cold, calculated, and premeditated aggravator. And with Jamie, it may have been. With Jamie, he might have gotten all upset, angry. It might have been in a heat of emotion. Not that that would have excused it, not that it did excuse it. But that's not what these crimes were. This was hours, days of thought. It doesn't really have any bearing on what we're talking about. Some other things about Dr. Holmes. You may recall she testified that the defendant was held back in the 3rd grade. Wrong. He was held back in the 6th grade. Very different circumstance. When his parents decided it would be a good idea for him to repeat 6th grade because he wasn't doing well in school even then, even after they were trying to get him treatment for ADHD. Dr. Holmes said after killing Jamie, he was struggling because he was caring for 2 kids. I mean, the audacity of trying to say that that might in any way mitigate because he killed their mother. He's struggling to take care of 2 kids because he killed her. He put himself in that position. But she did say it. Other interesting thing. She said she gave the defendant the MCMI, I'm calling it a personality test. Now, I wouldn't put too much stock in the personality test like that, but it's one of the things that they use to do things. However, what did she say? She said, for our next witness we're going to talk about, it did not show post-traumatic stress disorder in 2023. So then we get Dr. Campbell. He's the post-traumatic stress disorder guy. He was literally hired to evaluate, does he have PTSD? And lo and behold, he finds out, yeah, he has PTSD. That's what I do. Pay me a bunch of money so I can come in and say he has PTSD. So, a couple fun things Dr. Campbell said. He said, people are not eager to talk about past trauma, except that we saw the interview with Detective Anderson. Dr. Campbell, I don't believe, had reviewed it. And we saw that it's like one of the first things he comes out with Detective Anderson. I have trauma. The defendant even claims he has PTSD from being cold from when he was homeless. So the defendant is, and just in the Facebook messages, he's very, wears his trauma on his sleeve for sympathy. Also, careful. What did Dr. Campbell say exactly? He says, when Dr. Campbell saw him in 2019, that he had post-traumatic stress disorder. He said, it would be unethical for me to diagnose him with that at a past point. He said, well, there are things that look like they're symptoms from back then, but I can't diagnose him with that back then. But note, Campbell is seeing him in 2019 after he had killed 4 people and been on the run for a period of time. And we'll look at that. Let's look at that a little further. What else did Dr. Campbell tell us? That his nature of work is largely based on self-report. Self-report's really important because what's traumatic to me might not be traumatic to you, and vice versa. had that conversation with him. And what the defendant reported as trauma was, it was initiated by his first wife leaving him. Well, can you blame her? He beat her. Indications are he choked her. He was horrible to her. And now he's traumatized that she left him? He doesn't get credit for that. She did the same thing that Lisa Svensson did and got out of a potentially dangerous situation. He also, other thing Dr. Campbell said is he cited was homelessness. And that with his mom and stepdad, he had, quote, learned they don't care, wasn't going to get any help, end quote. Let's look at that for just a second. Talk about this a little bit later too, but Lisa and Paul Svensson, they appear like wonderful people. They did everything they could for that kid. They tried to get him treatment when he needed treatment. Even when his biological father committed suicide, they got him treatment. He didn't want it, didn't respond. When he got a girl pregnant, they are providing for him. They're trying to set them up. They're doing everything they can to make that guy over there successful. Everything that they knew how to do. And he has the audacity to say through a psychologist that he learned they didn't care and wasn't going to get any help. And that trauma that this defendant claims of homelessness is all self-inflicted. He was only homeless because he wanted to be homeless. He was only homeless because he wanted to smoke marijuana and be a criminal instead of having a place to live. And they still tried to work with him. They're like, they set up the shed. The defense has a picture. Look at this horrible shed. And his mother says, that's not the way it looked when he was living in it. We had just built it. We set it up nice. It was like camping, but we still tried to make a provision for him. It was only for a couple days. But despite all of the bad behavior he was engaging in and all the pain that he'd already put them through, they were still trying to care for him. So he doesn't get credit for trauma because he decided to be homeless. And the other source of trauma is that in between killing Jamie and these three people, that he was distressed, anxious, paranoid, fearful, and he's traumatized by that. He killed somebody and was traumatized because of the thought that he might get caught. You don't get credit for that. So, does that weigh at all? No. Dr. Woe said there's a difference in his verbal and nonverbal scores. I believe he said verbal was average. Nonverbal was average to low average. He's still average. And his IQ was average. But the difference is abnormal. Means it's unusual. You don't see it all the time. Is that a weighty mitigator? Absolutely not. Does it weigh more heavily than any of this stuff? Not even close. Not even one. But you look at those three doctors and, diagnoses and this and that. Well, I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, there is a diagnosis for this defendant that encompasses all that. Selfishness. Selfishness. His defendant's actions in the past, his actions then, selfishness. And you can see the pattern of that throughout his statements, throughout everything that he is doing. Selfishness. At 12:27 in the morning on January 4th, 2019, he is talking to his mother on the phone, and he tells her he wants her to take his kids. She didn't know any of this was coming. Just a call out of the blue like, hey, I killed 4 people. By the way, can you raise my kids for me? And then he says, if this is my dying wish. Selfishness. That's what he wants. He's got no concern for her. No concern for her life. No concern for what she's doing. No concern. His only concern is that he gets what he wants. And he's willing to pull on her heartstrings to do it and manipulate, because that's what he does. So Vincent Del Santer we heard from. What did we really learn from him? Nothing. We had a lot of Jamie bashing in the defense's case. We had a lot of, oh, she's so horrible. Well,
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes?
Or I'll just. Objection.
All right, overruled, you may continue.
but Mr. Del Santer did tell us something interesting. The defendant showed up in February 2018. Jamie's been dead for weeks, because this would be in Ohio. Kids were dirty, and the defendant just wanted this guy, De Santer, to watch his kids for him. Selfishness. And also, the defendant told him his wife had been arrested in Florida, because he lies. Lisa Chuppa, Paul Chuppa, what did we really learn from them? Again, just more attempts to bash Jamie. The defendant tried to get his job again. They didn't hire him. They were under the impression Jamie had been arrested in Florida because this defendant lied about her. Most of what they knew about Jamie, not everything, but most of what they knew about Jamie came from this defendant. How many other lies had he told them about her? Cheryl Purpura, again, more Jamie bashing. Michelle Justice, same thing. Don't really get a lot of information.
Objection, same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
So Michelle Justice says Jamie would call looking for the defendant if he was working after hours, keep calling, wondering why he's not home. Well, remember, timeline of this, Jamie is barely 18 years old with a new child at home. Is it unreasonable? Now, granted, no one's going to say here that Jamie didn't have some issues or that Jamie was an easy person to get along with all the time. But I mean, are we really going to trash her because she's calling to find out where the defendant is when she's at home with a new baby that he impregnated her with when she was 17? Rachel Rigby, you got a poem, part of a poem. What's interesting about her is the defendant also lied to her. Kind of out of the blue. I say out of the blue. It was the beginning of a conversation. They were not independently talking. It was new day. The defendant just comes out with, hey, my wife Jamie committed suicide. One, it's a lie. And two, why is he telling her? Play on sympathy. Heard from Maria Deliberato and Grace Hanna. Both of them work for an organization that is devoted, and they've made it a lot of their life's work, devoted to ending the death penalty, because they don't like it. And Grace Hanna gave this defendant an immeasurable amount of free labor to help him put out a book before all of us were here today. She said she spent a year working on it, typing it up at various points, an hour here, an hour there. Maria Deliberato, sure, great. He's nice to them. And the defendant is great when people are catering to him, when people are serving him, when people are, oh, how are you doing? How are things with you? How wonderful are you? When everybody is serving him. Really, what do they give you? Not a whole lot. Nothing of significance. Raul Benasco. That's a fun one. On the one hand, he seems to want to portray general population in the Department of Corrections as this horrible, horrible situation that would be worse than death row. And death row is a country club. I mean, why are they doing that? But then he also wants you to believe that the defendant has been great in custody because he's been in protective custody by himself and he's afraid to go into general population. But his expert opinion is that he'd acclimate great to general population. Nothing of substance. So now let's look at, now defense admitted a whole bunch of records. I mean, I want to say it's in excess of 6,000 pages. And I don't know that you would be expected to go through all of those, but there is some interesting things in there. And so, of course, I'm an attorney, I can't help myself. I'm going to go through them. If you look at the school record, you'll find out first grade.
Excuse me? Yes?